Hi, my name is Bailey Goodrich, and I will be doing my oral presentation on split brain syndrome. For my introduction, split brain syndrome is when there is a disconnect between the two hemispheres of the brain. It is also known as callosal disconnection syndrome. The corpus callosum is what connects these two hemispheres, so split brain occurs when the corpus callosum is severed or damaged in some way. As shown in the photo on the slides, there is a left and right hemisphere of the brain. And information typically travels back and forth between those two hemispheres. So when there's a disconnect with that corpus callosum, certain issues can occur. For example, some people with split brain syndrome have problems with object recognition and speech because each of those are localized in one side of the brain. Someone with split brain syndrome would have trouble using their left hand for verbal commands because of the severage of the corpus callosum. A surgical procedure called a corpus callosotomy is done in epilepsy patients. This is done by surgically severing the corpus callosum in order to stop the spread of seizures from one hemisphere to the other in the brain. However, this procedure is only done when all other measures have been exhausted, so it's kind of an extreme procedure to do for epilepsy patients. For my first study, I looked at the Robert Sperry experiments that were conducted between the years of 1959 and 1968. Sperry conducted experiments on cats, monkeys, and humans. He studied the differences between the left and right hemispheres. Basically, he severed the corpus callosum in these animals' brains and then observed them doing tasks such as eating with an eye patch over one eye. That was done specifically with his cats studies. And it was found that the hemispheres can function on their own without the connection of the corpus callosum. So when he finally moved on to human experiments, he found that performing this procedure on epileptic patients worked as a treatment for their seizures. My second study that I looked at was Miller et al. Split brain research. Miller and other researchers published their split brain research study in 2010. The participants included 28 people. 6 of these people had their corpus callosum severed, and the other 22 people were the control subjects, so they did not have anything wrong with their corpus callosum. The goal was to examine the patient's moral judgments. Their hypothesis was that people with a severed corpus callosum will show abnormal moral judgments. The results of the study indicated that people who had a full or partial callosotomy, meaning that their corpus callosum was severed, they tended to show abnormal moral reasoning because belief judgments are performed laterally across the hemispheres. So that connection kind of disrupted those judgments. As for the similarities between the two studies, they both studied patients with epilepsy and or a callosotomy. So their their corpus callosum was severed. And then Miller and other researchers actually branched off of Sperry's research. As for differences, Sperry started out with cats and monkeys before he moved on to humans. Miller started with humans because they didn't need all that extra stuff, and all that was done back in the 60s. So, and then another difference is Miller et al. Focused on moral judgments specifically in callosotomy patients. And here are my references.